Hey, I'm Miles. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a hero. But instead, I grew up to be a nobody.
Another schism.
Schism picked random weirdos and made them fight to the death. And the internet loved it.
Nick wins.
Yeah, Nick, I love you.
Coming. I think you have the wrong... Whoa, who are you?
You have 24 hours to kill Nix. Fail, you die. Leave the city, you die.
It's showtime.
Everybody's changing, and I don't feel the same. Thank you, Keen, and thank you, brave listeners, for joining us today on the film board from the next reel at rashpixel.fm. We spoil movies. This month, we're all stuck in our homes and desperately awaiting new release dates for all the movies we wanted to see this spring and the summer and next year as well. It's crazy town for Hollywood and movie productions all over the world as tectonic shifts are happening in everyone's daily life, reflected accordingly in the entertainment landscape. So, what to do? What to do? That's the question facing all of us in lockdown isolation. Well, there's this theater-at-home concept that's sweeping your favorite on-demand streaming service, and we mean to capture the titles that pop on it, at least until we can all get back to enjoying our traditional darkened auditoriums. We were going to originally talk about this movie in February, but it got soft-pushed back, right smack back into the middle of the stay-at-home quarantine. It's available now from a variety of outlets, so we're going to spoil it for you in this show, and you can decide if it's worth your stream surfing time at home. Before we get into this grand royal new style experiment, go check out all the details about the Next Reel's party of podcasts, nextreel.com. And as always, the best way to support the evolution of these thought-provoking discussions on the motion picture medium is over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Subscriptions there help us keep the conversation going here in your ears and everywhere else in the world. Okay, let's introduce our host tonight. How do you guys feel about internet trolls? Tommy Handsome.
Great question. Love them.
Okay, that's a take. What about you, Steve Sarmento? How do you feel about trolls?
Well, sometimes I agree with them in that just people are dumb and I don't like large crowds of them. So I sort of, I guess, have something in common with them. So I guess.
Oh, internet trolls. I just heard the word trolls. I'm sorry. Yeah. Under bridges, right?
Trolls. Oh, he was thinking the little guys with the big hair.
Can't stop the feeling.
If you're just talking about regular trolls,
right.
Love them.
Okay, well, back to the internet then. How about Tech Team Captain, the good doctor, Pete Wright?
I love them, but only when I'm wearing my GIMP mask.
Okay.
Oh, God. That's right.
Thankfully.
This whole movie just came rushing back to me.
Yep, that's the purpose. That's what we're doing here. We're rushing back. My name is JJ, and I think trolls are generally uneducated mass communication provocateurs that should be shackled in some way, but I'm not sure that I have a good. And quite honestly, this theme of the introductions shows that it may be easy to get way too deep into what we're going to talk about in this movie and what point this movie was even trying to make. So I'll need you three guys together to check me if I get too far down in the weeds. So let's hear how this one did for you guys on your couch at home. Pete, what did you think about Guns Akimbo?
I hate going first. I really do. So this,
you're a coward.
To me, this was
trolls
already. I have a funny conflicted sense of this movie, and I worry that I'm going to come off too harsh. So I'm going to really try to soften my experience here. I thought this movie was really bad. It's so crappy. It's so bad. The script is terrible. It's like I want it to have some sort of a purpose. If it's going to live and exude such exceptional violence, I want it to do it in some sort of clever way. And I just think it has no ideology beyond like backyard playground weekend movie making, and that bugged me. So my conflict is it's not a good movie, and yet I still had a good time.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm happy with you going first because I think we might feel the same sort of way. Steve, how did you feel about Guns Akimbo?
I have a feeling this is going to be The name of this podcast will be Guns Akimbo. Actually, You're Next Too. Pete and Steve are going to disagree on this one.
Oh, that is a long title.
No, it is. Because I just finished this like about an hour and a half ago.
Okay.
So just fresh off the couch on this one. But it reminded me a lot of You're Next in the fact that it did a lot of different things. It was a showcase of different styles. And once I accepted that, because at first I thought this movie isn't sure what it wants to be. Oh, I think this writer-director is just showcasing, look at all these things I can do, because it's got Scott Pilgrim-esque video game moments. It's got really darker moments, really violent moments, gunplay, gun fu, all of that stuff. And it's not consistent throughout, but whenever it's focusing on each one of those aspects, I was having a fun time with it. But it really came across like a little patchwork quilt of things. But to me, I agree with Pete. I had a good time with it, but I didn't think it was a horrible movie. I think it was just a bunch of movies that are put together into one big long thing.
Okay. I'm a little confused. I'm interested to hear when we get down to how you rate it, because it was an interesting way of looking at it for me there too. Okay, Tommy, how did you feel about the patchwork horrible wonderfulness of Guns Akimbo?
Well, look, I'm fine with a movie as cheeseburger. I'm fine with movie as candy. I think they're very important.
Okay.
But this was garbage. I think we're going to go into what you already name checked some movies that it sort of rubs up against. I can name check movies like, the current season of Westworld or Nerve. It rubs up against a lot of different movies. The thing that this movie enraged me about is that its frenetic pace and its frenetic filmmaking, I feel personally, it really was just hiding how lazy it was.
Yeah.
That the jokes, the script, the characterization, everything was actually so lazy. The gunfights, we are past this movie. This movie could have been a revelation so long ago, but now it's like, why? What is this for? And it still looks expensive, so I'm angry at it.
Right.
So no, I did not think it was a good movie, and I also did not enjoy it. So I'm on the bottom right now.
Okay.
See,
so
I feel like I could be swayed either way right now. I'm between Steve and Tommy. There's a good chance I come out just like going Guns Akimbo on this movie.
See, and I'm a lot more like Pete in that I thought it was a terrible movie. Really, really bad, but I liked it, which is a really weird way to feel. And maybe that's the quarantine in me right now, that I'm looking for a little bit of distraction.
JJ, that's the quarantine in all of us.
But I recently, to talk about how we're past this movie, I recently went back and watched the 3 John Wicks back to back because I was late to that party too. And you talk about gun fu or this gun thing. There's so much innovation in what they're trying to show in the violence there. And while this movie, while Guns Akimbo has a concept, has a big idea somewhere in the movie, there's nothing in the execution that makes this an innovative or special movie. And that's why you get exactly what you're talking about, Steve, about these sort of hearkening back to other things, but it's all just really this, these sort of distorted pinches of what we saw in those other movies. And I think this one is just, it generally felt like a failure to me, even though I enjoyed going on the ride. So before we get into more talking about it, because I think really, I think we do have some interesting things to kind of dig into here in the meat. Let's do a quick synopsis. And I don't know, knowing now what you know about how I felt about this movie, I'm probably not going to do it justice here. So if I trip up, you guys bring me back. So Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, plays a game application developer who's a generally boring guy that gets drunk one night and gets into an internet rage fest with the fans of a particularly degenerate fight for your life online community called Schism. Capital SKIZM. The leaders of this graphic violence tournament take exception to his trolling / anti-trolling, take your pick, and hack his computer to find him, drug him, and bolt guns to each of his hands to compel him into the horrific game that he loathes.
That old chestnut.
Yeah. He then is pursued by a particular assassin who is also being blackmailed to play the game in her own way. The winding path that these two reluctant players take is flush with explosions, kidnapping, betrayal, and, as the title suggests, rampant gunplay, all while they're learning about each other's motivations and trying to find some sense in a completely jacked up expression of the world as a whole.
I would have liked to see that movie. No, you did a great job of explaining what the movie purports to be. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, the point that the thing that I highlighted when we were going through there is that sort of trolling / anti-trolling. Like, I think that's the concept here, and I could be wrong, but this idea of all the hate that's being spewed online, and then these people that are trolling the trollers, and this kind of like, it's this reverse Schadenfreude mirror about what's happening in the inner world today but this is where I get tripped up, is the troll our hero in this? Daniel Radcliffe gets into this because he was being a crappy person and trolling others, right?
I will be interested in this part of the conversation because I could find no through line for the idea of what this movie was commenting on, except maybe if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. Well, I guess. But that doesn't answer your question. No, that comes with what, like,
come to the internet with guns out of your mouth, then make sure you shoot them up in real life. Is that what you mean?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't think that the movie presented an argument nor answered it in any real connective way, other than just what I just said. As what Rice Darby, as the homeless Magoo says, something about everything's terrible out here, but if violence comes for you, you better be ready for it. Walk the walk, talk the talk. That's it. But it doesn't make sense in the movie.
My impression to that point, Tommy, is I would say the movie presents a lot of perspectives, a lot of questions, and doesn't answer any of them.
Okay.
Right. So
sure.
It's like, I think that the movie is about like the whole concept of poisoned community, like what happens with our global internet community when it becomes a poison well. It becomes like the individual contribution to the greater good, right? Is it possible to be an individual and be a contributor to the greater good? It is, what does it mean to be a hero anymore? So we definitely have some hero anti-hero kind of dynamics on there going on here, and it could have been in many ways called Guns Akimbo Ascension. Like at the end, the troll becomes the weird Matrix superhero in a Dodge. Like that was the most
very end,
singularly baffling coda to this movie that I mean, of course, at the same time, I totally saw it coming. Like, It's, of course, they're going to put him in black leather and let him and have him now have clean guns, and he's still cleaning up the world. That was never his context.
No.
Like, that was never his jam. It was just, I don't know, Steve, I'm sure you're crawling out of your skin right now. What am I missing?
No, because it was his jam. Because what do we see him doing at work early on? He's not doing his job being a developer. He's online flagging videos and reporting videos. He's trying to clean up the internet.
Oh, I thought that was his job.
He's out.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I thought that was his job.
No, he worked.
They flubbed it. He worked it at that squirrel game, but that seemed to be his hobby.
He worked at that squirrel thing.
I thought JJ and Pete also was extremely confusingly handled. So I had forgotten about that, Steve, and you make a good point.
So, because he works at the company that's a shady company that basically is an app that's there to steal money from kids, parents' credit cards. But when he's there, he's not coding on that. He's on YouTube flagging videos, these horrible videos and everything. So then when he goes home, that's when he finds Schism, which is like the deepest, darkest, nastiest place on the web. So, of course, that's where he's going to start trolling. So, yes, the end, now that Schism, he's going to continue working on this. Yes, it's ridiculous. This whole thing is a video game comic book movie. Everything is so over the top and ridiculous. I agree. There's parts of it that are executed better than others. There are other parts that I thought worked really, really well. I was a little saddened that I was watching this on my TV rather than the theater for that whole car chase at the beginning.
I was so glad that I was at home because I would have gotten so sick. Motion sick. I would have needed Dramamine for all of the
there's a lot of that.
he has a gumdrop and the camera's like, "Wah!" cup drop.
Exactly.
It's a little insane at times. I even from my couch, I had to look away just a couple times because I was starting to get
Okay.
Dizzying. The weirdest choices of when they're going to go. I mean, they're alone and they stumble upon this, like, just naturally running from each other, and suddenly they're in like a laser tag set straight out of like Batman 3.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
It was just like a baffling set of coincidences that walk through this movie. And so, Steve, I think you made a point early on about how it's a kind of a patchwork of other movies. The problem is this movie doesn't elevate any of them. Not a single one. And I think is the problem that's most frustrating. It doesn't bring anything new to the table, to the point where
it doesn't even match the level, though.
It doesn't match the level. And so I think JJ did himself a grand disservice watching John Wick before this movie. That was the
sounds like
worst
a
thing you
disaster.
could do.
Or watching a movie.
Yeah. But you know, the little things like wandering around the street saying, like having his horrific voiceover saying things like, look at the world. I used to be one of those guys who had my face in my screen. Now I don't. Like, the world is a beautiful place.
It's like everything is in HD. Okay.
Yeah, right. Everything's in HD. Forehead
We're just,
slappingly.
even before John Wick, which is, I think, the par excellence. Is that a phrase? Par excellence? Cool. That no longer can action sequences involve two people running into a room, spraying bullets. You don't see where the bullets really go, followed up by fake looking CGI blood. Like, there's no choreography.
Right.
I mean, that's
depends what you're shooting for.
right?
I mean, not shooting for, but I mean, because to me, this is a director
But you called it a pastiche.
that's not going at.
It's just not even matching any.
No, but I don't think he's trying to raise the bar. This is a director who I expect that I would see lots of stuff that's going to go straight to like Netflix or Sci-Fi Channel, and it's that level of stuff of like, I can do this stuff. I'm a competent filmmaker and I can do this. It's not raising the bar, but I can do those cheesy Mansquito movies. I can do those sci-fi shoot 'em up movies. I can do all those things competently, and it works well, because I agree. The CG blood, everything we've seen here, we've seen before. And I'm like, oh, if I had taken this part and expanded it, I would love to see that movie. If I took that part and expanded it, I would love to see that movie, as one of those 3-star Saturday afternoon movies I watch on Netflix that I know I'll probably watch once, maybe twice, have a good time with it as pure entertainment. And that's it. Well, and I think that's all this movie was striving for.
You make an interesting point. What I might be holding against it is the fact that it was going to get a theatrical release. And this is a sci-fi SYFY movie with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
We'll throw it back to Trailer Rewind and look at a movie like Free Fire, for example.
Yeah.
Free Fire is like this, but it has a concept and it's executed very well. Like, I would recommend Free Fire 100 times before recommending this movie. So
I find myself just listening to Steve exhausted. Like, how is it that you have time in your head while you're watching this movie to write 5 different movies that are spin-offs of it? I think that is like this movie takes so much attention from me unearned. And that is the thing that I felt was frustrating about it.
The movie never stops.
Large.
And the amount that it gets done in the first 10 minutes is incredible. And I'm on my couch. I'm with my dog. I have nothing to do. And I kept checking the time to be like, it's felt like a long hour and 37 minutes because it's
that's
numbing.
How long it was?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Hour 35, hour 37. Yeah. It has an extended ending, as they do.
I did want to tell a personal anecdote about the story. And that's, this concept of this sort of normal guy who gets... You guys decided that it wasn't his job that he was flagging these things. I thought it was, but so he then goes home and he gets drunk and angry that there's this evil thing going on in the world.
Yeah.
And then he calls it out and stuff, and then they come for him, right? Well, when I was in high school, there was this group of guys. I don't actually know who they were. They called themselves they called themselves the Six Pack, and they would go around and they would vandalize people's stuff.
Oh, gross.
Houses.
I don't like
They'd
that.
egg places, and they would toilet paper houses, and they would do all the stuff. And you guys know, that sounds like something that's like the most ridiculous thing that anyone ever do. Yeah. So really, like, actively. I was like, these people are idiots. I was calling them out. I wasn't doing the kind of things that Daniel Radcliffe is doing in this movie, not saying they should die or anything like that. I'm just like, you guys are idiots. They don't, they shouldn't be. Why would anyone do that? It's infantile. Well, so they came for me.
Oh,
I had a car and I parked it, and I had my car parked outside in the driveway, and they destroyed my.
What did they tape to your hands?
No, it was. Literally, this happened in high school. They put powdered sugar over the car, and this is in Minnesota in the cold, and then put syrup, and then put easy cheese.
Wait a minute, what happens? What you're just described something that I feel like I need to know about.
Your
what
car sounds delicious.
It really does. You just described
your car sounds
an
like
amazing
a snack.
cupcake.
Yeah.
Well, if you freeze these things on a car, it damages the car in a way that cannot be fixed. Powdered sugar with syrup.
Oh, is that like shaving cream on paint almost?
Yeah, it's like this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And literally, I am not kidding you when I tell you they killed a rabbit and put it on the dash of or on the hood.
Where did you live? Hunger Games?
That
right?
is crazy.
Suburban Minneapolis. So the point being is like this story of him like going out and doing this and then bringing in. I'm like, it's so.
This should be right up your alley.
Well, but the point is, then why is he? Then he becomes a hero by joining in and becoming a hitman.
Yeah.
At the end, I mean, like the story. The point about this, originally is looking at the story here. This is not, there isn't a lesson in this story. You cannot, and you guys have talked about it as burgers and candy and this kind of thing. The only way you can like this is to recognize it as a cotton candy dinner. And that is the best you can say about this movie. And it doesn't particularly do that well either. I mean, I'm glad we talked about the John Wick thing already. I think, has anybody read the book Homicide by David Simon? I think, Tommy, you recommended it to me, right?
Oh, yeah. I've read it a number of times. It's one of my favorite books.
So Homicide is a book where David Simon goes and he embeds himself with the Homicide Division Baltimore. And he goes for a year and he just talks about all this stuff. It's a great book, 5-star book in my opinion. And they talk about all of the Hollywood mistakes or the things that Hollywood does with guns. And in the scene where he's in the alleyway and he's going to shoot himself, they channel that a little bit where you've got the homeless guy saying to him, "Oh, don't point it that way." Like, because everyone just assumes that if you point a gun at your head, you're going to kill yourself, right? It's actually really difficult to kill yourself unless you aim in just the right spot. So that's really neat that they do that. But then with all the other stuff they do with guns in this movie, it's just utterly ridiculous how guns are like throwing people across the room from like,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's the,
the first time he fires it.
Really?
Well, the cartoon, when it gets cartoony like that, then that's okay for me.
Yeah.
I wanted either something to be grounded. I don't know. That's weirdly me. For me, that's okay, JJ. I can't exactly say why.
Okay.
But this is the same reason that I liked Wanted, right? I'm okay with you being
and
able to shoot around
this movie is Wanted
corners.
Also.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, because we start with a guy who fires off one bullet in his apartment and it like deafens him and he's vomiting because it's so loud to the point where
and he tells us
within 24 hours
a moral about it. Yeah.
Within 24 hours, he's now like a sharpshooter because he's shooting off rounds and taking people out.
Another idea that didn't get followed through with it all. It could have been put the wrong man in an action movie, see what happens, and instead we got to see him. It's hard to pee in a toilet, and then he was great.
And yet that entire opening sequence, every time we come back to him trying to do something goofy, that was the funniest stuff from the trailer. And I felt like it was well overplayed in this movie. Like I was so done with hands in pockets, putting up things. How long does it take you to eat an 8-month-old hot dog on the street with your gun fingers? I was just like, I was done with all of the gags off of that. They weren't as funny in the context of what this movie was. So I am right with when I say I had a good time with the movie. It was as soon as they stopped trying to play me with how like intelligent the movie was going to be. It was the cartoony stuff. That was the stuff that I thought was most entertaining. Like, yeah, I even was able to let go of the fact like when Nyx is out of the car and she has the gun with the big round cartridges on him and she starts firing and they use this really ill-timed slow motion sequence and the cartridge is like rubber and it's shaking back and forth like wobbling like this.
Really wobbly.
And I thought this is like, I'm even okay with this because blow him up, shoot him up. I can flip that switch in my brain. It's when the movie was trying to say something, it was punching above its class, and that's what it got frustrating.
Well, and then one of the things that I want to talk about is the irony of the fact that this got pushed back or threatened to be pushed back because the writer-director, was bullying people online.
That's right.
You guys
about
know
bullying
the detail
online.
Of this? About bullying online.
Yes.
He was feeding trolls, right?
Yeah, he was feeding trolls.
I mean, what?
And so all of that happened before I think any of us knew what the actual subtext of this film was or text of this film was. Does that change your view of that experience now that you've seen it? Or because I have to tell you, and I'd be surprised, JJ, if you didn't share this, I kind of felt like it was a little bit manufactured.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Well, when you say manufactured, I agree, only because the fact that it doesn't resolve, the fact that it doesn't have a say, well, we should be this way, shows that it's just like, here's a big, smarmy, disgusting mess that exists in the world, and I'm just going to highlight it, but I have no idea what to do. Exactly. Oh, well, I guess we end up all being assassins at the end. Like, what? No, that's not the point. But whether or not he meant it, that's what he ended up being, right?
Oh, wait.
Does he?
Yeah, that's not even feeding the trolls. Is don't feed the trolls means don't engage.
Right.
So he's not even. Oh, so the director did exactly what's his name does in the movie. Is that what we're just saying over? And I just figured it out. Yes. I'm sorry.
100%. Yes.
Oh, you're all good.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Next Real Film Podcast. Tell me when we start recording.
So, well, what do you guys know about Jason? Is it Jason Lee Howden or Jason? What do you know about his stuff?
Deathgasm.
What do you know about this?
Yeah.
What is that?
I didn't see it.
Deathgasm.
I just know the title. It's called Deathgasm. Yeah. That was the one feature that he's made before this.
Well, the majority of his credits, here's the piece that I find strange about, the fact that there isn't a whole lot of innovation in terms of the way that this was executed, the visual effects, is that this guy's most known for his visual effects.
Right.
He was a visual effects artist on War for the Planet of the Apes. He was a digital paint artist on Man of Steel. Actually, we may know some people who have worked with him.
Right.
That I think it's interesting that in this film where he was writer-director, that I didn't see a whole lot of innovation from visual effects. What was there something that stuck out to you guys that was special visually here?
No, unfortunately.
No, I think he was limited by his budget because he doesn't have the budget of,
the Avengers,
The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, Avengers, Wolverine, Man of Steel, Great Gatsby.
On.
Yeah. There was one point, and I can't remember. It's when there's a point where he's fighting somebody, and I think it's the when he comes across the drug deal, and he shoots the leather jacket guy in the neck, and the guy dies on him, and like. Ugh. And my daughter said that blood doesn't look good at all. That blood looks really bad.
Raspberry jam.
Were they gonna color correct that? Because that doesn't look right at all. And I'm like, yeah, that's something that got missed because the budget and time. Because I've been watching the Corridor Crew guys a lot on their visual effects analysis, and they'll say, yeah, you'll see some of these big movies, and sometimes it's like run out of money, run out of time, and it's like, well, that's good enough. Is anybody going to really notice? And it goes. And with a smaller film like this, with a smaller budget, I think a lot of corners were cut. There were a lot of things, and again, I wasn't expecting A-level game on this. I was, content to meet it where it was, which was down in a much lower category.
Daniel Radcliffe, like the theatrical release, also makes this movie, I'm misusing this word now that it's changed, but problematic for me.
Yeah.
You just go in for Daniel Radcliffe is starring in really interesting movies. They're not all great, but they all have real vision and real something to say.
Yeah, what makes it, is he problematic or just his presence here is problematic?
The presence.
I'm not sure. Did he do something that
like
I
a
missed?
bigger movie
his
than
presence elevates the promise of the movie for me.
Me too.
Yeah.
He is making such exceptionally interesting choices
that I was like, there's got to be something about this, and that really undercuts, that hurts the movie for me, weirdly, because that hurts my ability, Steve, to be able to take it as like, oh, it's a direct-to-video this, because what is he doing in it?
Having fun with guns on his hands, going
I believe
like
it.
this.
I bet he could do it.
And I wanted this to be free fire. I mentioned that. I wanted it to be Free Fire, but it turns out to come off a lot more like Anna and the Apocalypse, where it's a movie it was a quick idea. It was a quick concept, but then doesn't really have, whether it's the budget or whether it's the execution, doesn't have the legs to make a feature here. And I think that's kind of what we end up with. I still had fun with it too. I just think I wanted something special, especially from a visual effects person. Now, in terms of budget, though, I would compare it to like, what are the low budget Tarantino movies? Like, he does a lot.
Tarantino
with a little, right?
He works smarter with like Reservoir Dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
With Free Fire, you've already.
Yeah.
I mean, we're now mentioned 2 to 3 different movies that all were dramatically and visually exciting in one place.
What about now? So I didn't see Death Proof, but those are
that's a lot of like
and the Robert Rodriguez stuff. Yeah. There's a really interesting comparison to be made between those movies and let's see the sequence. There's a point in this movie where it becomes a side scroller, right? It's just like I feel like it's an homage to something like Old Boy, right, where you're just watching travesty happen on screen as they move down this corridor, and she's in the warehouse and she says, "Do me a favor. Shoot that Richter for me." And then she takes off. And of course she has her trench coat on. And of course she's got C4 under the trench coat because foreshadowing. Yeah. And then she starts running and none of the bullet stuff is necessarily believable. And then she blows up and the fire it just doesn't quite engage. And you're just not like, and I feel like that is, it's sort of getting to what I wanted, that sort of Sin City-esque. We know we don't have the budget to do things like and make these composites completely believable, but we're going to do it in a way that it's okay because you'll be lost in the visual. I didn't get lost in any of the visuals in this movie, but I felt like that was pushing in that direction for me.
And if we can transition, I don't mean to transition early, but one of the things about these other movies that did help, and one of the reasons that I'm so angry at this movie is the script wasn't there for this movie. This movie thinks it's very clever, and this movie thinks it's very funny, and it is not either of those. It is very glib. Oh. It's just filled with sort of like pseudo hip terms like nice fap cave and stuff. They're not really jokes. They're actually references to terms people use. There's not a lot of, I wrote down, there's 3 different jokes that I liked in the movie, and the movie thinks it made around 40. And there's 3 that I thought were funny. So that gets into that, a little bit of that inherent, what I feel laziness about it is, you're not going to give us characterization. You're not going to give us the visuals. So at least we're going to have that strong writing. Darn it. This felt like a first draft a lot of the time. And it gave Daniel Radcliffe, who is so committed to the role, he is saddled with some really horrible dialogue and exposition and sort of voiceover to have to use. And Samara Weaving was a revelation for me in Ready or Not. And in this, she's given almost nothing to do. Almost nothing to do. And that's unforgivable because we've seen her have the capability to be incredible.
Lest we forget, to your point, Tom, that schism is supposedly this kind of new thing, right? That is just taking over the city and taking over the world. The city was already named Shrapnel City.
Wait, it was? I don't remember that.
Yes. I saw that. Yes.
Shrapnel City. Yeah. It's a weird dystopian that is right now.
Yeah, we aspire to be more dystopian. That's not a thing.
Right. And that's what I brought up Nerve, like this idea of monetizing mayhem but he didn't bother building the world at all. You don't even see advertisements.
Right. No.
It's just people are watching, so therefore it's successful. That's not how any of that works.
I love it. Like when they do the cutaways to the groups that are watching the show, like that
the same
nice
5 cutaways
guy who just can't stop eating chips, and they go to the naked bro group in the sauna, just saying it's just a game, bro. It's just a game. But of course, it's not a game. How self-aware can we be? But they did have a moment that made me think of all of you guys in particular. This is after
that wasn't it. It wasn't in the sauna.
No, it wasn't in the sauna. For me, it was. It made me think about our as he it's the flashback after the great reveal that he was wearing a vest, and it turns out
right.
I was so excited for the movie. I thought this is going to be the thing that redeems it for me. He gets shot, and they think maybe they just wake up and they think I'm smart enough to understand that he put the vest on, and I don't need a reveal to show that he had the vest on.
Yeah.
And then they immediately show the reveal.
Yes.
But
that moment.
They did say, she comes into the picture, and the way the scene is blocked, he's standing here, she's standing here, and he says, "He killed your dad too." He's right there.
He's right there. And then the cutaway, they didn't refilm it from her POV. They used the exact same insert shot where it looks like she's standing over her own father.
The whole time. Yes, exactly.
And didn't notice.
That was so good, and all I could think about is like she did. Like that could be the next thing. He's right there.
For the finest hour.
Right there. Oh, God.
Yes. Oh no, that flashback was problematic because number one, everyone here watching it said, "No, we know this. We know that clearly because we've seen him fumble with his gun hand so long. There's no way for him to get his shirt off to put a bulletproof vest on and then get dressed unless somebody's helping him. So we already knew that. So then we get the flashback, but then my daughter says, "Well, wait a second, where's all the drone cams now? Wouldn't they see all this?" Since I said, well, if he turned off his GPS, and I'm like, well, wait, no, Nix is there. They'd be following her all the time.
I think they ADR'd in someone vaguely saying cut the feed.
Yeah.
For no reason. Like there was no, as if they figured it out later.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not going against you. I'm just saying like.
No. Oh, no.
If anything, at the least, at the most, they did that.
Yeah.
Cut the feed.
I do, from an aerial perspective, for all of the aerial footage, I think was shot with a drone in this.
Look like
it. Yeah, not always bad, but definitely noticeable. And I don't think you want to know that, other than the times when when they show us, the overlay and the map of the drone. I don't think you want the audience to say, "Oh, you're shooting that with a drone." I think you just want it to be a camera perspective, and it wasn't sloppy. It was just very. You could see the strings of the puppet master that was making this movie. So,
there's so many. You can see the strings of the puppet master trying to move the story around. Like I said, it's cobbled together, but for each part, I mean, it's not a cohesive film at all. But so the beginning, when I love so many things that were fun when he's like, we start off with him walking to work and he's texting. We've got all the emojis and stuff flying off, and somebody bumps into him and the coins go spilling out. And then he's walking through and he's an adventurer, and he's got Scott Pilgrim. And then we've got like cartoon overlays on him of like a warrior and all these different superhero with a cape and all this. And I thought visually, I was like, that little piece right there is like, okay, for what it did there, I like that. It's a completely different movie from what we get to at the end. Yeah. I mean, it's this thing has got multiple, as I said, like multiple personalities. It's different films at different points throughout it. And if I look at each one of those, no, they're not excellent, but I find something, and there are flaws plenty in this, but there are moments that I thought in each of those where I'm like, okay, I can enjoy this for what it is. I'm not giving this 4 or 5 stars or anything like that, but I could say I don't hate it, but I can parcel it out and say this sequence here's something I enjoyed about
it. If it wasn't so
that's
glib,
what I get out of it.
What I take as glib and seemingly so self-impressed, I would be able to feel that way. But I think this film thinks it's nailing it the whole time. And that just makes me angry.
Something about that. I mean, one of the things, and this is, we usually talk about this later in the show as well too, but the music cues were just terrible. And initially they start off with all these, like, they seem like they're karaoke versions of covers of pop songs that we know that are meant to, you talk about being glib, that are meant to kind of like lead us down a road. That's all fine, but it slowly degrades into this last music cue happens at the pop of the climax that completely destroys any emotion in.
No, that was brilliant. That's like Never Surrender.
Oh, that
one.
That was that I love. To me, that was like in Frozen 2 when they do the cheesy thing, ballad. I'm like, it's so self-conscious, aware of what they're doing by pulling in. Because I thought it was Bloodsport, but it's actually Kickboxer. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme. Kickboxer is where that song is from. No, we all laughed because it was just, it's so ridiculous. And you have to, they cannot be taking themselves seriously when you pick something like that. And to me, it worked perfectly at all of that because it's very aware of what it is.
Controversial hot take. I agree with Steve.
Wow.
I was fine with it too, to be honest, because it was tonally. The movie got its own joke.
Yeah.
For once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm sort of figuring out
maybe you're giving it too much credit. I don't know, but I laughed. I laughed at some of those music credits. Those were the jokes that I actually got. Like I feel like I think what I liked about it is for a little while there was consistency. It was taking an old song, revamping it in this kind of cheesy thing. Like I like the spin me right round where the one guy can't hear the loudest. I was okay for a second. That gave me like a jolt of like, oh, this is the movie. Oh no, it's gone again.
Yeah, and I guess that's how I felt in the Never Surrender piece. In that the music of that moment didn't work in parody for me or in seriousness.
Oh, for the one, no, I wanted the song from The Karate Kid. It's one of my favorite songs.
Is that the one that you're the best?
Around. That if that song would have worked, that's the song that would have worked for me because I didn't recognize
works in parody.
Because I didn't recognize the song that Steve is talking about. So I was like, oh no, did they write this song? Because it's terrible. Is this like a thing? But I was like, I've got to assume because of the other songs it's from something. But for the you're the best around would have been pretty funny.
Or if they would have done Transformers, You Got the Touch, You Got the Power, which was originally parodied in Boogie Nights. I mean, like there you understand your own joke.
Agreed. I agree
with
JJ.
My thing.
Yeah.
I guess I mean, if it works for you guys, it's just a tonally thing that didn't work for me. But and they could have done more with that too. I agree with you about You Spin Me Right. The way it started, it worked, and it just sort of it never was a big idea. It was always
there's no choreography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, speaking of just choreography in general, I think there's a sense of hero moments, and I didn't find any of the hero moments particularly strong or clever. And I didn't get that like feeling of, oh, now I'm going to cry because I can't handle my emotions. They're bursting forth. We do have this sequence where both Nix and Miles are getting their asses handed to them, and they and Nix loses her fingers. She loses 2 fingers. And she, once again, nobody seems to feel any pain. But those fingers become a bit of a trophy piece.
A hilarious runner, you mean?
I'm very curious if I missed something. And I should say parenthetically, I was watching with subtitles turned on because I had to adjust volume and because lots of people in the house. And at one point Richter is crying and he's crying oh, and it says Richter fake sobbing, and I thought, well, that's on. It's exactly what I'm getting. They really are nailing it with these subtitles. And so at the end of the movie, speaking of Richter, he's hanging off the side of this building. Yeah. And Miles comes up and manages to take, with his gun hands, to take the finger out of his pocket and somehow maneuver it into Richter's mouth as he's hanging.
Phil makes me furious.
You guys, why? Why did that happen? And did I miss an emotional beat? Like, was that supposed to communicate something? Because I was awash. I did not get it at all.
So that was.
You don't remember him saying to Nix in the beginning of the movie, "At one point, I'm going to eat your finger." No, it's nothing.
No, it's because she loses her fingers, and then it's the middle finger. Yeah, so basically, it's Nix giving Richter the finger.
They make the same joke twice.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it. That's enough.
No, that was it. There was nothing more to that. No, it wasn't. It's not smarter than that. It's not cleverer than that. No, it's as dumb as you say it is.
He was super believable and good as a bad guy.
Tom sobs fakely.
Yes.
Because he was in a different movie. He was in that weird Shrapnel City dystopian crazy Repo Man movie that the rest of the movie isn't in. The movie is just...
He reminded me of the bad guy from Commando. Do you remember that with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, that...
Who's wearing, that is just like, he's supposed to be this really, really terrible person, but he just feels sort of vaguely like weak and like funny and more funny than menacing.
Yeah.
Like that in Commando, it was that way too. And you always feel like am I supposed to feel bad for this person or am I supposed to hate them?
Right.
And that's how I felt for him the whole time in the movie.
Oh no, does he think he's scary as a bad guy? Yeah.
Wait, okay, now someone referenced the GIMP mask. So what did you feel about?
How could you even breathe in that thing?
He had lines too. He had lines with the mask on that were literally
that they recorded through the
mask.
Yes.
Well, it's a pretty low common denominator for the jokes. I mean, nothing's funny unless something's happening to your genitals. Everything is just sort of feels very like the first draft of stuff. It's that anger I get when I feel like you never thought that was a placeholder until something. And I'm not saying that I'm a great writer. I'm just saying that I'm also not going to be in theaters. So if you're in theaters and you get Daniel Radcliffe, aim higher.
Why did she call him an F-boy the whole time? What was the whole thing about that? Speaking of Fap Caves, why did she call him an F-boy?
That's not actually what F-boys are. They're actually getting the slang wrong. She's just putting a bad word with a noun. F-boys are actually very kind of confident, powerful guys who were just gross.
And jerks.
Yeah, and jerks.
And he's not a jerk at all. And she has no reference of even his
not even
trolling
getting
where
the
he
slang
came
right.
off as a jerk. So
not even getting the slang right. Yeah.
Is there anybody else in the movie that you guys want to talk about? Anybody? We've talked a little bit about Radcliffe, Samara Weaving, Rhys Darby.
I mean, not in terms of people necessarily, and we may not even need to delve too far into this, but there is sort of a love story that nobody has brought up with Nova that is mostly shelved, introduced, and not paid off, but it exists.
Well, and that's the one thing I do like about the Never Surrender is that it's this fake thing about them coming together. And then he says, no, of course not. Right. Like, because it's terrifying. It's a terrifying situation. Like that's reality. But other than that, the whole Nova, save the cat type of situation for her, the whole hostage thing was just confusing.
Well, there were two Nova moments that for me, I enjoyed. And one was the little flashback to the date where he talks about the superhero of Man, which that actually made me laugh. Of a man bitten by a radioactive man who's got man powers and his man senses are tingling. That made me laugh. And then at the end, when it's like you get the idealized like, oh, I've just defeated the bad guy and she's gonna run into my arms, and he's like, no, when you pistol whip a bad guy, your girlfriend, basically gets PTSD. And I thought, okay, so again, there's a moment of, oh, we're going to ground this in reality. We don't do anything. But there were moments there where I thought, there's that movie that I could extract out of everything else. I would want to see that.
There's that movie, right?
Yeah, there it is.
There's that
I
Nova
totally
movie.
agree with that.
I think we wanted to see Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
This movie owes
Scott Pilgrim
a ton to Scott Pilgrim, which is so consistent and so elevated and so clever. That movie every time I watch that movie, I'm like, don't have to be this smart. It's so
from beat
good.
To beat to beat
nothing
to
is
beat.
nothing is wasted. It's so great.
Right.
And
well, it's Scott Pilgrim and Wanted. If you mash those together, that would be.
And instead, this is Sharknado and. I'm trying to find another, and Sharknado 2.
but that's the problem, is that the movie does enough to indicate its aspirations.
That's what drives me crazy.
That's the problem. It is unoriginal to the point that it actually sets us up for the movie we want, and I think that's its greatest sin, that it is not able to deliver on that. It can't be its own thing because it already set up that it wants to be other people's things, and it still can't deliver on that. So that's why I think that
if the tagline for me would be, "Hey, if you liked these movies, you won't like this one."
Well, that's all very true, I think, about this. At least it was for me. Is there anything else that we really need to talk about this, or should we just go ahead and rank it?
I like the lighting. The lighting was stylish.
What do you mean?
Some of the red and blue, some of the lighting stuck out of some of the scenes. I was like, oh, whoever lit it, this deserved a better scene in this, because it's like comic booky and dynamic. It's Repo Man-y while sometimes also grounded. It's interesting. And then they're just making dick jokes.
This is we'll call this the cherry on top.
Oh.
I am so tired. I'm so tired of movies that purport to be about technology and technologists and they can't type.
Oh.
That is
Right.
it's so absurd
Yes.
that he is supposedly a
Yeah.
coder in a game company and he sits down
Yeah.
and he's hunting and pecking. And the only
Yeah.
reason that could even be mildly construed as funny is that when he gets the guns to his hand, he's
Guns-
still
then he-
hunting and pecking. And you know what? That's
Yes.
funny for about a negative 2.5 seconds. And then you realize,
Yeah.
that's really dumb. I'm going to stop laughing at that.
Right. And then GPS and phones. I've learned that you can just turn them on, turn them off, and decide.
No. He was turning
when you want to
on
lure
and turning
people
off
to
the
them.
malware.
Yeah, the malware.
Right.
You just spun up a quick app.
Yeah.
Put it on his. You know what?
Apps
You don't
to-
spin up quick apps. That's not how that
Apps
works.
I don't.
I know.
That
Come
actually
on.
I disagree
This movie
with.
is great for 12.
I've been turning off and on trackers all night just for fun. No one's even tracking me. I'm just doing it.
This is where Guns Akimbo really latched onto that hit film Black Hat that we all love so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
Black
really
Hat.
nailed the technology as a resource from Black Hat.
Yes.
Yet another one.
Yep.
It's just like if you
Crying-
liked
Yes.
this.
For crying out loud.
Okay, so that definitely lines us up well to get set up and rank this.
Guns Akimbo, The Hobbit, Flick Chart.
Is it that order for you? Are you ranking already? Is that what that is?
The Hobbit.
We've got all the movies we've talked about on this show ranked over at flickchart.com/TNR Film Board. Flickchart is a really cool site where you can create a tournament-style stack ranking your movie preferences. So check it out and find out how your film favorites fare against ours. Pete, did you log in? Because
I'm in. I am in and ready.
What's up first? Guns Akimbo versus?
Beirut.
Beirut.
I'm going to say Beirut.
Yes, Beirut.
I have a feeling this is going to go fairly quickly.
Yes.
How about Guns Akimbo or the Wolverine?
The Wolverine.
The Wolverine.
Oh, Wolverine.
Great scene.
How about Guns Akimbo or Jason Bourne?
I don't even care which Bourne. Jason Bourne.
How about Guns Akimbo or the Happy Time Murders?
Ooh.
Oh.
I stand corrected because that movie thought it was hysterical also.
Also,
I think
I'm
I'm
gonna
going
go
to say Guns Akimbo.
I'm going to say Akimbo.
I'm going to
I'm
say.
all Happy Time. All Happy
I
Time.
got to say Happy Time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, Pete and Steve, you guys do some Rochambeau on
All
this
right,
one.
Steve.
Okay.
All right.
One,
1, 2, 3.
Three. Paper.
Scissors.
All right, so Happy Time
I
wins.
can live with that.
All right. How about Guns Akimbo
Oh, no.
or Guns Akimbo 2, The Monuments Men?
Oh,
Guns
because of how we're already ranking it, it's putting it
Yes.
farther
Yeah.
down the list. Oh,
Right.
Guns
The
Akimbo.
Monuments Men, I assume.
When did we start flick charting with you, Tommy? Oh, right. 9 years ago.
But I never figured out how the algorithm
How it
works. I just
works.
thought it was robots.
It's random. Yeah.
So what did we say there? What was the
Monuments
I'm
Men.
Guns Akimbo.
Okay.
Oh, so we have 1-1. Steve?
Monuments Men, of course.
I am Monuments Men as well.
All right.
Guns Akimbo or Black Hat?
There it is.
I might say
I'm Akimbo.
I'm
I'm
gonna
Akimbo
say
on
Guns
this one.
Akimbo because
Yeah.
at least Guns Akimbo got to it and got out.
I did have. I mean, the bang bang shoot 'em up stuff. There's some cleverness to that. So,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
even if it's
Okay.
not original
Akimbo?
cleverness, it's.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
It's
Akimbo.
action.
Yeah. There's
Oh my
fun.
God, Black
Yes.
Hat somewhere was just like, what?
Are you kidding?
It was a whole movie.
We're the Hemsworth
Yeah.
even.
Well, surprising no one, this has become the second to the worst movie on our list. It comes in at number 90 on our flick chart, and it's solo, in fact, that the stars don't even fill on the little flick chart recommendation of how
Oh,
many
wow.
stars you should use. This is a 1 out of 100, and so that's where we are. How'd it do on your lists?
I gave it, well, so it did beat some on mine. It did beat, talking about Anna and the Apocalypse, it did on my personal flick chart. It was above that. And so it's a little ways up, but it's still very low for me. I gave it 1 star. But as I said at the beginning, it's 1 star and a like for me. I didn't dislike watching this movie. I just don't think it's a good movie at all. So it's 1 star and a like.
1 star and a dislike for me. My name's Tommy. I saw the movie. I think you owe me $6.99.
Yes.
Can I just take that right out of the Patreon?
Yes.
Plus tax. Yes. It's 2 stars and a like for me.
It is, for me on my flick chart, it came in at 1342 out of 1444, and that's a 7%. It should be a half-star film, and I was debating whether or not this was going to be a half-star film and a like or a dislike or a non-event. And I think it's going to be a half-star and a non-event after this conversation. I think Tommy has
non-event.
Okay.
Meaning
Tommy has officially swayed me. No heart on this one.
no heart. Got it.
And
Well, this is the first of our Film Board Theater at Home series. We are going to try and find something to do just like this as the months go on. As long as we're still in quarantine, we are keeping our eyes very closely on the major film releases when they do go and are available for streaming. So as long as we are in stay-at-home orders, we will look to do something like this, and we will announce it to you on our Discord channel, on the web, in any way that we can when we find something to do. And of course, as soon as we can get back to the theater, we will do that as well. How about on the main show? Pete, what are you guys doing on the Next Reel show right now?
well, I'll tell you, we're in the middle of our John le Carré series, Jolica, and so we've finished up. What did we do? What just went live? We did Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Fantastic. We did
That's
Little
my
Drummer
favorite
Girl.
book of his. Is Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
I need to read it, but we did The Little Drummer Girl, so she was there, and then the last one, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and that is also fantastic. So do with that what you will. As we wrap this up, we'll be moving into a brief series of the films of Agnieszka Holland with Europa, In Darkness, and Spore. Coming up. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're very excited about that.
A lot of very meaty films to get in through
Truly.
there. And then we have just recently started, now about a month ago, the Marvel Movie Minute for The Incredible Hulk, the second movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. About to wrap up that first month. Where are we right now in the minutes?
Oh, JJ, there's blood in the bottles. That's the big thing. There's blood in the bottles falling into the bottle. You all remember that hit minute when the blood fell in the bottles.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, blood in the bottles. Yeah.
There's blood in the bottles.
Yep.
Yeah. It's very scary right now because of the blood in the bottle. And poor Stan. We've cleared our Stan Lee minute. So that's where we are. He's going to be very angry.
Nice homage. Well, that's wonderful. So there's a lot of great shows you can check out in the Next Reel family of podcasts. So check those out. And also, I forgot to talk about it in the show open, but if you're out there listening to us on this show right now, you should come join us over on Discord, thenextreel.com. You can let us know that you want to hang out with us on the server where we gather with our fun film family to discuss lots of remarkable things from throughout the entertainment universe. There's specific chats about each of our shows, so come join our gang and interact with us on the internet. Tommy will say a lot, and that'll be wonderful. That is where we will keep this conversation going. But for this one, say goodnight, Pete Wright.
Good night, everybody.
See you later, Tommy Handsome.
I gotta go wash my hands!
And one more word from Steve Sarmento.
A gunza hondo.
I love it. At the Next Reel, when the movie ends, our conversation begins. Till next.